The saga or the summer, the saga of the transfer window, the saga of the summer transfer window of 2025 is finally coming to an end. Of course, there are several sagas in terms of this year's transfer window. He talked about that of Sesko. You, of course, also talk about that of Alexander Isak. The biggest of them all has to be that of Victor Osimhen, the Nigerian striker. This guy was on loan at Galatasaray for 1 year last season. Of course, currently he's a player of Napoli. But what we understand at this point in time is that the transfer saga involving Napoli, Victor Osimhen, and of course Galatasaray finally is coming to an end today. That is what I can tell you at this point in time. As I talk to you right now, Victor Osimhen has of course signed his 3 years contract at Galatasaray to of course become the new Galatasaray striker. Alright, remember I told you he was there last season on loan. It was a 1 year contract, but then Galatasaray wanted, or they of course want him to continue at the club. They are giving him big money. In fact, from what we hear from sources close to this young man, Victor Osimhen, we hear that Galatasaray are willing to pay him more than Napoli are, of course, paying in terms of salaries, right? So that's why maybe he's not, of course, willing to go to Saudi Arabia. Right now, Victor Osimhen is, of course, getting the deal that he wants. He wants to remain at Galatasaray. Thousands of fans have mobilized themselves. We hear that there's a particular Galatasaray fan who has, of course, mobilized about 5 different buses to, of course, convey Galatasaray fans to welcome this young man, Victor Osimhen. In the history of world football, I don't think I've seen anything like this in Europe, where fans are, of course, trooping out in their thousands to, of course, welcome a new signing at the football club. It happens in pockets, right? But then the way it happens in Turkey is totally unprecedented. For Galatasaray, next season is, of course, going to once again be, hopefully, a huge one for them. Remember, they won the cup double. They won the Turkish Cup last season and, of course, won the Turkish Super League. This time around, they are, of course, making big statements in the transfer market. Of course, getting this young man. Remember, I told you that Napoli held on for the transfer fee of Victor Osimhen. They said they wanted 75 million euros. Of course, Galatasaray have, of course, agreed to pay that. Well, right now, we understand this year Galatasaray would, of course, pay 40 million euros. While next year, they would, of course, complete that another 35 million to make it 75 million euros for the signature of Victor Osimhen. Well, will Victor Osimhen be a success at the club? Yes, that is what of course I'm very sure of. Victor Osimhen is a core professional and he takes his football really very serious. Finally, it looks as if he's of course going to get out of that more like a trap at Napoli at this point in time. So let's see how it goes for Victor Osimhen. What we can say currently, welcome Victor to Turkey once again.